pay attention to a woman's body language when she's around you. Women will make it very subtly obvious whether or not they are into you if you understand the signs. And me, throughout my entire journey, I just didn't understand any of this stuff. I was very oblivious. I lost a lot of women, and I was also really unconfident. So I didn't know a lot of the things that I'm going to share with you guys in this video at the time. And because of that, it cost me a lot of opportunity with women. So the main theme of this, though, is you need to pay attention to her body language. The girls, they're not very obvious with it. It's a little bit more subtle, right? We as men, if you see a girl, you're just going to start staring, right? Honestly, like if there's a really hot girl in your environment, especially if you're not experienced, you can't help but like start looking at the girl more and more and more. And the guys that are typically less experienced with women, they have a tendency of staring in a very creepy way, or they hover around the girl in a way where like they almost want to approach, but they just can't approach. So they just try to like stay around the girl, just kind of hovering, especially in particular in the nightclubs. Other environments, most men will just kind of look at from a distance. Women are a little bit more sneaky. They're not as obvious, all right? They're not as, it is actually obvious if you know the signs, but they're more subtle. It's like micro signs, right? And so understand that most women, they're still checking you out. Maybe not every girl's gonna be attracted to you, but if you're in an environment, a girl knows you're there and she knows what you look like, and she has very quickly assessed you and made an evaluation of you, okay? So women are not oblivious. Just because you don't catch the girl staring at you, you need to understand that she knows that you're there. Whether or not she's attracted to you, a different story, but women are looking at you, women check you out, women are very aware of their surroundings, and more importantly, they understand, they could scan a man and very quickly determine whether or not they're intrigued and they want to, I guess, check to see how valuable you truly are, or if they're kind of like disqualifying you off rip and they don't want to inquire any further. But they will do this. I promise you, they do this with every man. They almost need to. It's like part of survival and replication that's embedded into our biology, right? So they're just not as obvious, but in different environments, they will do subtle things that if you know how to read the signs, it will make it a lot more obvious as to whether or not she's into you. So let's just go over a couple of these, right? So one in particular is when I was going out and doing a lot of nighttime interactions. I would go to the clubs, the bars, the lounges, and oftentimes in these environments, especially when I was early on in my journey, I would go to these environments and I would be really unconfident, right? So I wasn't that unattractive physically because I had already been working out at the gym for like almost 10 years at this point. And so I wasn't that, I guess, unattractive. I had put in the time into my look and stuff, but I wasn't that confident with approaching. And so I would go out to these environments. I would go with my friends. We would kind of post up either by the bar or at different areas of the environment. And periodically, there would be women that would come up into our vicinity. They're not gonna come up and just straight up talk to you, but they would come into the area. And they're not gonna make it obvious. They're not gonna walk up right next to you and then just post up right here. What they'll do is they'll come into a somewhat near vicinity. They'll give you proximity is what they call it. They're in your vicinity, and that's done whether or not it's conscious or not from the woman. Honestly, sometimes it's not even consciously done, but they will set up near you, okay? And if they want to make it a little bit more obvious, they'll start to play with their hair a little bit. They'll start to kind of like adjust themselves. They'll even maybe talk louder in hopes that, that maybe gets you to look at them a little bit more. So women won't blatantly come up and start talking to you. A lot of the times, a tiny, tiny percentage of women will, but it's, guys, honestly, it's, from my experience, it's never been the girl that I really, really want. It's just never been that. Unless you're the 10 in the environment, then maybe the girl that's equivalent might, but you never want to wait on that. Okay, you never want to wait on that. But women will put themselves in your vicinity if they're really attracted to you. They're still not going to come up to you, but they will do this kind of sneaky thing where they'll be near you, or maybe what some of you guys may encountered is you're at the gym and then suddenly the girl starts coming up and she starts working out like right next to you. She does like the tower that's right next to you. And not every girl that works out at the tower next to you is attracted to you and wants to date you and wants to be with you. But some women will just put themselves in the vicinity of you to almost give you an opportunity. So she might come up next to you. Now look, Do you need to open and hit on every girl that's right next to you? No, you don't. But understand, guys, like if you move to another location and then she just happens to be over there as well, and these girls are like bouncing location to location with you, like that's pretty obvious that they want to talk to you. Okay, so one of the body language is going to be the positioning in the environment that they're in. Okay, that could be at the gyms, that could be at the nighttime environments, that could be any type of classroom setting where the girl's kind of like sitting near you, or whatever the thing is. It could be yoga and she comes over by you. Just pay attention to the girl's positioning and the location she's in. Some other subtle ones that might happen too. This could be a different one. You're in the conversation. And by the way, I just remembered that there's a point towards the end of this video I want to talk about, which is like a mentality that you need to have around all of this stuff. Because as I'm saying these, I just remembered this other part to it, right? But the second one is when you're in an interaction with a girl, pay attention to her facial expressions and her body, because a lot of guys ask me, how do I know if the girl likes me? Or like one of the most popular videos I see online is like signs that the girl's into you, right? And guys overanalyze this stuff, like micro analyzing certain things. Is she into me? Is she not into me? Just look at like when you're going up and talking to a girl, start paying attention to the body language, her facial expressions. Like you can actually see in someone's face if they're like excited when they're talking to you. You can see in their eyes that they light up a little bit more. There's this term called like the anime eyes. Like girls' eyes will get bigger when they're talking. And just people in general, their eyes will get a little bit bigger when they start talking to someone that they really like. So it may not be obvious, like, oh my God, but is she enthusiastic when she's talking to you? Or is she engaging, or is she kind of like looking away, not kind of like talking to you? Or if you're talking to her, is she like not smiling at all and just kind of like giving some answers and then kind of like looking down type thing, right? Is she enthusiastic or is she not? But also that kind of ties into how you communicate too, because some of you dudes, you might have just a complete whack vibe. And if you can't even talk in an enthusiastic way, like obviously the girl's not going to be that enthusiastic if you're just a dude and you kind of talk like this. So just side note on all of this stuff is that like, even though you need to pay attention to the girl's body language, like if you're not engaging yourself very quickly, the women are going to move on, right? So is she engaging in the interaction? And I mentioned this earlier with the proximity, like some girls will just like play with their hair, but also they will adjust themselves in an interaction. If you're on a date with the girl, if you're talking to a girl, this could be in the middle of the interaction, suddenly she may start to adjust herself, or she starts to get concerned with her appearance, right? Maybe some of these women they'll pull out this like little pocket mirror, start like making sure that they look attractive. They redo the thing, they play with their hair, they're holding their hair, playing with their hair, they're adjusting their shirt, they're adjusting things. They're like, all of these are signs. These are unconscious signs. They're not even trying to signal this to you. Almost all of these things, by the way, are unconscious. These are unconscious signs or micro signs that the girl is actually attracted to or intrigued by you. Again, it does not mean that you're like, oh, saw the sign. Hey, you want to go on a date? She's gonna be like, no, like I don't know you, right? It's not that they're sold. They're just intrigued and they're curious to want to explore it more. So they put themselves in a position where something could happen. Doesn't mean you just pounce though. It's like a little kitten that is kind of like slowly coming up to you. If you try to pounce on the kitten, it's still gonna run away scared. You gotta like, throw a little bit of bait at it. It comes a little closer to you. You don't pet it right away. It rubs up on you. You don't try to grab it yet. You let it get comfortable in the area. And then slowly you can put your hands on it and pet it, and then you could pick up the kitten, right? So that's how you need to treat all of this. You see that the kitten is coming closer. Oh, the kitten is intrigued, but I don't want to just pounce on it, right? You want to let it come near, a little bit of interaction, get comfortable, and then slowly you can crank it up, okay? But one other thing in the interaction that ties into them adjusting themselves, they're playing with their hair, they do all these things. And by the way, if you're wondering how many of these things a girl's gonna do, she's not going to be doing all of this stuff. She's not going to be there and talking loud and going like this and playing with her hair and adjusting. There's going to be like maybe one or two of these things. And sometimes it can be very subtle, okay? Or maybe what might happen is you make eye contact like 2 different times. Now look, if you're out at the gym and like you look over one time and you guys make eye contact and she looks down and she never looks back at you ever again, dude, she's not into you. That wasn't oh, I caught her looking at me. Like people will look at each other. That doesn't mean she's actually into you. But if you catch a girl looking at you multiple times, she doesn't need to be staring, but you catch her looking at you multiple times, that was intentional. That was intentional. A girl's not gonna keep looking at the dude if she's not really at least curious about the guy. And again, that doesn't mean you just go up and hit on her and try to get her number. You take a mental note with any one of these things. Any one of these things, okay? It's like there's this theory called cat string theory, right? There's a cat, and if you dangle the string, the cat will be entertained. It will start to play with it. You could even put it there, pull it away, and it'll start chasing the string even more. If you just throw the string at the cat, there's no chase, there's no challenge. It gets bored, it has the thing, and it moves on to the next shiny object that it can chase a little bit. So with all of these different things, if you see a girl that's getting into you, you don't just pounce on it. Take a mental note that, hey, there's potential interest here. Oh, she's giving me proximity. She gave me eye contact. She's touching her hair a little bit. She's adjusting herself. She asked this question, right? Like some girls, by the way, they're never gonna come up and hit on you. That's maybe happened 3 times in my entire lifetime where a girl just straight up came up and actually displayed intent. What women will do though is they'll come up and ask you a question. They will find a way to ask you a question. It's another subtle thing. It's not technically body language, but it kind of intertwines all the concepts we're talking about here. Because one of them is more just location. The other one's like her touching herself or adjusting herself, or the way that she's talking to you. But this other one, women will just come up and ask you a question, and that's their way of trying to get into an interaction with you. They're very indirect, very subtle, whether it's with the body, whether it's with their voice, whether it's with the things that they're doing. It's all very subtle. But honestly, here's the thing, man. It's not that subtle. It's only subtle in comparison to the way that men behave. All right? Women's body language and indicators are actually pretty obvious. And honestly, sometimes, I'm not even gonna lie, sometimes they're pretty stupid. Like, it's actually comical sometimes. Like, once you understand this stuff, it's actually kind of comical sometimes when girls like find this weird way to like show interest. It's kind of funny, honestly, right? The only way you get to that level is you start to pay attention to these things. You start to pay attention to these things, but once you start to see the signs, it's not that subtle. It's just in comparison to men that are very obvious and so predictable, man. That's really what it comes down to. And the final thing I wanted to say in this video is that I was the guy at one point that got over analytical about body language and about all of these different concepts, so much so to the point where you're trying to study and calculate to find out whether or not the girl's into you, that you don't even just go for it, okay? So don't wait and wait and wait to see I need 3 different signs that she's into me, and I need her to be in this position and to do this thing before I could go up and talk to the girl. Dude, you're just going up and starting a conversation. Remember, we're not pouncing. We're not just asking her out. You can start a conversation with anyone regardless if she's showing you interest in her body language up front. So yes, it's great to point out all of these signs. And in hindsight, there was a lot of opportunities I had in my 20s that I didn't understand the signs. And for those reasons, I just didn't even go for them. But there was also a period in my journey where I was starting to see the signs and I started overanalyzing. I still wasn't just going for it. Okay, so yes, it's good to learn, but at the same time, you gotta just focus on the action itself. And if you're trying to get better with talking to women, just make a decision that you're gonna go out there and talk to those regardless. If you see the body language, great, that gives you a little bit more confidence that you could go up to those, but don't let that be the end all be all. If I only went up and talked to the women that were showing high levels of interest from body language, that would have been less than 2% of my interactions. And I needed a lot of these opportunities to really build myself up. Okay, if you wanna get better with your own social skills, your social confidence, get the dating life you want, become better with women, I can help you with these things, guys. I've been coaching this for a really long time. I've spent over 10 years working on these areas of my own life as well. So click the link down below, check out the brand new coaching programs I got going on. That's all for this video. Be aware of how the women are interacting with you in the environments that you see in your day-to-day. I'll see you in the next one.